Time to make a game. New Unity project. I drew a whole bunch of pictures. Here's one. A game can be made about this. Have a head, a mouth, that's the goal, and get food into that mouth. Super basic, can make more things after that. I'll start with this. Got this 3D space, and we'll start by creating 3D objects. With the cylinder first, this can be the head. We'll make something nicer later. Much bigger. Okay, have a head. And get a few folders here. Scripts. Materials. So materials. There we go. Just call this head for now. Put that on the head and change its color. There you go. Okay. Head color. Okay. If it's a face and food has to get inside, then food can hit the face and bounce off. So that's fine. It'll just have a collider. Food can hit the face, but it's going to need a mouth. Capsule. That'll work. Okay. I don't really want to build 3D object in Unity. It'd be better to do it in Blender, but do that later. I just want something temporary. Alright, material. Copy this. Control D. Rename that. Mouth. That go on. There, on the capsule. Change that to black. Duplicate. Call it lips. It's got a capsule collider. Great. And I can have another material. Lips. Great. Give that a name and bring it forward and make it smaller. Too small. Oh, there. There. Some weird looking lips. It goes over here. Sphere collider, capsule collider, and then there's the mouth, and that's going to have a trigger. When something hits that, then it needs to count for points. The food needs to be destroyed and get some points, but anywhere else in the food should just hit the face and bounce off. Oh, it's so pretty. And that'll get the same color as the rest of the head. The nose is the least weird thing about this face. Not that way. Z-axis. go for a mohawk. That'll work. Oh, other way. Much better. Beautiful. Need something that is food. Candy. This is going to be a projectile, so it's going to be instantiated by the code multiple times. So this can be a prefab. It's going to need a script. Food projectile. Be as descriptive and neutral as possible. It's probably better. What do I know? I certainly can't write all this code myself from scratch, but I'll work on what I know. I know I'm going to need, not in start or update, but I'm going to need something, some line of code to say that I'm going to instantiate that prefab. The food prefab. Leave that for now as a comment. When something has to happen, some kind of a trigger. Should it be a button that's pressed on the keyboard? Should it be a mouse click? Should it be something completely different, like on a timer? And maybe I just have to aim at the mouth, and at regular intervals, candy is fired off. So probably a mouse click, that's fine. Create code to spawn when triggered, that would be fine. So instantiate prefab. So mouse button will be down. So on mouse down. There we go. Private void on mouse down. This comment going here. The candy's going to need. It's going to need speed. It's going to need to be fired at the face. So it'd be like a transform dot. I don't want to transform the position. There's different ways to move things around. There's position. You can apply a force to it, like impulse. I'm used to seeing transform translate, new vector 3, and then there's an x, y, and a z coordinate. I don't know about that. Transform translate, that's not really what I want. I'm going to need something else. So I'm still going to need to write what I can. Vector 3, and I'll just 0, 0, 0 for now. Have to come back to that and figure it out. What else will I need? It's going to have to travel at a certain, the candy, the projectile will have to travel at a certain speed. So I need speed. I'm going to need that variable. Private float and call it food speed. And the food speed should change. Like if I have different difficulties, different levels, food speed should be something that can be changed. So I don't want to make it equals to anything here. I will have to define it then. Food speed equals, give it a speed of 10 times time delta time. Sure, it can do that, but there we go. Also, it has to be multiplied by the difficulty level. I don't think there'd be anything else. It could be power-ups. I could always add that in later. Or like your arm throwing strength. That could be added in later, but actually that's not a bad thing to put in now. I like that instead of 10. Throw strength times level difficulty. Level difficulty will have to be a public thing for later. Throw strength. I will temporarily just define these here so that things work. Oops, what did I do there wrong? Oh, private float, equal signs too early. Equals 1, and do the same thing with throw strength. There, 1 times 1 times time delta. It's got a sphere collider, and rigid body. So we'll do that with the head. Everything else, a component. Rigid body, but no gravity. And big mass. Candy can have gravity and a small mass, so it'll get thrown and bounce off. Person's throw strength times the level difficulty times time delta times that the projectile moves at a consistent rate. That works. Okay. What else? I guess that's... Should that be in update? Is this a good place to put it, or is this better to have it in start? Well, throw strength isn't something that's going to be constantly changing, neither will level difficulty. So there's no reason to constantly update that. Start. If that's not the right place to put it, alright. But it seems like a good place to put it. I feel like I'm stuck now, so I need to figure out this part. I will go to my tutorials here. Here it is. Yes, that's the one. Pizza can shoot. This is not that different from what I'd like to do. Firing food towards a face. So this is perfect. So this has a public float projectile speed. Well, I've called mine food speed. And private float, I can make it public if I need to later, but that doesn't seem necessary right now. It's got a projectile boundary. Oh, because if the food gets too far out of range, if it goes off of the screen, there's no reason for the computer to keep tracking that piece of food. If there's going to be a lot of candy thrown and they're flying all over the place, the computer doesn't need to track it all. It's just intensive on resources for no reason. So yes, boundaries will be needed. That's a good idea. I'm going to focus on the rest of it here. Not that big a script. Yeah, I'll work on boundaries later. Okay. So void update, projectile movement, and movement boundary. And right here, this part here. So transform, translate. All right then, I was not that far off. Okay. I was correct about that. But I don't need the new vector 3 part. So transform, translate. Vector 3 goes inside brackets. Forward. Time delta time times food speed. So that's just like this. I don't think I should call this private void on mouse down. I think I should give it its own name and have on mouse down inside of it. Oh, and this is why it's public, is because left clicking the mouse came from somewhere else. I can left click and shoot pizza, but it's not in this script. is something calls projectile movement, but what's calling it? Something had to create the food first. This will make the food move, but it won't trigger the food to exist. So, yes, I can get rid of this, but I can call it something else. Private void, I don't know, food movement. And food movement. That will move the food. I can add boundaries later, and this is called food projectile. All of that works. Instantiating it, though, that's going to happen somewhere else. Where will that happen? Back to the Unity project and take a look at the player. What do they have? So the player has a game object, projectile prefab. Allows this script to interact with another object. Here, projectile launch. For the projectile itself, this should be fine. I can add boundaries later. But for making it move, this will work. Right now, I just want to get it to move. I can figure out where the limits of the level are later, the boundaries. So I'll get rid of these comments and save it and make a new script. Instantiate food projectile. There. That's great. So the food is going to need somewhere to come from. It's going to need a player. Create cube, call it a player. Don't care what color it is. It doesn't need a box collider. Food projectile will go on the candy. And then I need to update that prefab. Instantiate food projectile will go on the player. Food projectile, yeah, launch is fine. Food projectile launch, copy that. That doesn't look right. Need that and that. Yes. Okay. Oh, and this should be private void. Huh? Private void. Yes. Okay, private void. Food projectile launch. And over here, here it is. Projectile launch. If input get key down key code space. So I don't want that. I want if input not any key mouse get mouse down. If get mouse down, then I like the comment. There we go. Just copy and paste that. Instantiate. It's projectile prefab, so I should change that so that it says, well, candy's too specific. But I'm thinking candy's too specific because I want to have different food. But that would require a list or an index, and I don't have that, and I'm still uncertain about making those. It wouldn't be a bad thing to try, but for now I'll just stick to this. I'll just call it candy. Okay, candy prefab, so create a candy prefab, add a position, and a rotation. Mine has red squiggly lines. Let's see. Okay, so projectile prefab is up top, public game object. So I need the same thing. Up top. public game object, candy prefab. Projectile prefab, candy prefab. This made it a public game object so that in Unity the prefab can be dragged and dropped. Okay, so I'll try that. Save it, go to Unity, it loads the scripts, and then on the player, yes, right here, it says candy prefab, none. I go to my prefabs, where I saved my candy as a prefab, put it in there. So now, if I hit play, what happens? Well, that happens. That's excellent. Okay, all right, scene. I've got a scene window and a game window. Okay, good. I instantiated some candy. I created it. Candy. But it's just plopping down. It doesn't have very much speed. So, okay, the face does explode. It's the wrong one. The face explodes, but might increase the speed. So, call that 10 and 10. So we're going from a total food speed of 1 to a total food speed of 100. Alright, here we go. We'll see if it moves forward. If not, I might have to change the direction instead of the candy going forward. Yeah. Why would the face explode? I think all the colliders just pushed off of each other. Mouth. That's what I want to do. I want to get rid of the capsule collider. So collider. Tried to do this with all of them. They didn't all work. Because they're different colliders. Sphere and capsule, or box for the hair. Okay. That's why. Alright, let's see. Will it explode? No. Good. There's the solution. Or if you'd ever like an exploding face, that's how to get it. You could have a whole bunch of colliders and suddenly turn them on and have them all smash into each other, I guess, and fly apart. Okay, I need something else here. On mouse, I'll close that so it's not a distraction. On mouse down. Food projectile. So, on mouse down, then it instantiates the candy prefab. Perfect. Then, I guess I could just call this food prefab here. Food prefab, there. Better to be generic. Can always use different types of food then, instead of having to pigeonhole myself, force myself to always only have candy, maybe have something else. Why not pizza? Throwing a triangle. Okay, so the food speed is probably big enough now. The mass of the candy isn't very much. It should overcome gravity. It's just 1. So it's got a lot of speed, it's got very little mass. That shouldn't be the issue. So the problem is the direction. Maybe. Let's find out. Try it up. Play. And variable food prefab was because I changed the name. So got to go to the player and not the candy that's in the scene, but the candy that is the prefab. That's the one that has to go over here. If I use the one that's in the scene, then things get kind of weird. It tries to instantiate something that's already in the scene. Down it goes. Okay. Oh, that one's just falling as well. Okay, oh. Oh, if I shoot lots of them at once, it goes up. Okay, maybe it needs way more. 100. Go for it. Vector 3 left, just to see what happens. Okay, hey, that went in the right direction. Nice, but is it too fast? Or that's probably fine. It's fine. Not going to be that close all the time. So move the player back a little bit. So that would be good. If this were, that's what I need for here. I need to move that camera. So the camera. What am I going to do with the camera? Move it over here. I could do that, so it's a side view, or could do it from the perspective of the player. That might be fun. Okay, I'll make it a child of the player. And it needs to be rotated. I think rotate around the Y. Yes, but the other direction. -90. Good. Okay, position 0, 0, 0, so that it's right on the player. It could be slightly backing up. Sure, we'll go with that for now. Okay, that's all right. Gravity doesn't act on it too quickly. I might even want it further back, but that's something that could be changed. There could be multiple levels where the head moves around, or the player can move. I should get the player to move side to side and rotate. Like, I should think of this less like a person, a player, and more like a hand. Like if you're holding a fork and or a spoon and you're flinging food at the other person, tossing it at them. It's like a. I didn't want to bring warfare into this. It's like artillery. It's like a bow. You have to point upwards, not at a 45-degree angle or anything that ridiculous, but maybe 30, 20 degrees, and have a bit of an arc to the movement of the ball just to get it into the mouth. So there needs to be rotation on the player. The player should be able to move side to side and rotate, to be able to pivot backwards and fire a projectile higher up in the air. And yes, there's all these candies here, so that would be why boundaries are nice. It's good to set boundaries that will destroy the candy that's too far away. That'll be next time. But this is a good start. Get rid of that candy. It is a prefab, and I can always bring it in if I want to.